Hello dear chess friends, and welcome to my video course on knights, on these fascinating creatures. Knight is a piece with a very strange and unique movement, and I would like to guide you through the most important qualities of knights. And I'm sure you will see many fascinating positions and hopefully also learn a lot of new stuff. So let us sum up some interesting and important things about knights. First of all, let us focus on centralization. Knights are the pieces on the board that are most sensitive to centralization. The central e5 knight controls 8 squares, whereas this knight, this poor knight on h8, just controls 2 squares, which means can just go to 2 squares, which means that the ratio is 8 divided by 2, which is 4. The e5 knight, the central knight, is 4 times as strong as a knight in the corner. That's you never get such a ratio with other pieces. With rooks, the ratio is 1 to 1. On an empty board, the rook controls 14 squares wherever it stands. There's no difference. So this is a huge difference. The second important quality, apart from being so sensitive to centralization for the knights, is that they are relatively slow in movements. So they need a stable haven, they need a stable outpost, and then they thrive. If they don't have a nice and stable outpost, they do have a lot of problems. So we will dedicate the first 2 chapters to looking for outposts for the knights. The first one will be like the basic simple level, and then we will go for the professional level, looking at long-term plans, searching for these outposts. Outposts for knights might be of different types. Very typical outpost, let us have a look together, is an outpost that is covered by a pawn. The second type of an outpost is an outpost where the knight is not covered by a pawn, but is shielded by the pawn structure. For example, all blocking knights have this type of outpost. And then in many positions there are like knights that are covered by a piece, and because the opponent doesn't have either pawns or pieces to push the knight out, so this also counts as an outpost. So we will be definitely doing our work to get knights on proper outposts. Knights, and this is the third quality of them, have a very specific relationship with pawns. Because they are not moving so fast, they can be nicely restricted by pawns, and we will have a chapter on that. Also, when a knight, even in a closed position, is behind its own pawn chain, it is vulnerable because it's not secured by a pawn, and quite often feels like some kind of a chicken in a cage. So it's not always true that a knight feels well in a close position, especially when it's behind the pawn chain, doesn't feel very well. So we will have a chapter on knights behind pawn chains. And then we will also look at a very specific relationship between the knight and a passed pawn. I would call the knight the best friend of a passed pawn, because the knights are able to control both colors of squares, so that they can help very effectively the passed pawns to go forward and eventually promote, whereas the passed pawns, on the other hand, create some outposts for the knights, which is also handy. So they have a very unique relationship. And as the last chapter, then we will have a look at the relationship between knights and bishops, and we'll have a look at several positions where the knight does dominate the bishop. I hope that this sounds good, and let us go to work now.